Greg, this episode of the podcast, and for all of you listening, is brought to you by Survivor's Best Friend. Survivor's Best Friend on Instagram, and their website is survivorsbestfriend.org. We talked with Emelen and Sophie, two amazing women. They have an amazing cause. One of the first, I guess that's one of the first of their kind to really provide a platform to support these type of women and men. But what they do is unite shelter animals with survivors of sexual assault and or domestic violence, rape, whatever it may be. And they help provide adoption for pets. They connect that loving bond in order to recover and continue on through the journey of life with these leashed friends, which is amazing. We had an awesome podcast. It got kind of deep at some points, but I think it brought us out of our comfort zone. It allowed us to really open up and talk with them, and I can't say thank you enough to them. Sophie, Emelen, thank you so much, and follow them again at Survivor's Best Friend on Instagram and survivorsbestfriend.org. Love you guys. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the episode. Booyah. That's amazing.
The dogs.
Is that even a real story?
That's a fact.
This is complete nonsense, Greg.
Read a book.
I guess you are kind of artistic.
Incredible.
What are you even talking about, man?
Go for broke.
I don't even know what that means. Let's get it going.
Let's get her going. Keep her going, baby.
Mr. Wagner, how are you doing?
Ooh, Mr. Castle. I'm doing pretty well.
Scott Castle, Santa Claus, Greg Wagner, what could that be?
G. Willikers.
G. Willikers.
Love it.
Wagner over
Love
here.
it. And there you go. So now, if you didn't know, now you know that we have some more guests on the podcast today. Super excited as usual. And thanks for interjecting and giving a great answer because Greg's brain wasn't
Our warm up is pretty poor here. Sorry, but
today we have actually two guests on, and they are down in New York City right now. So fellow New Yorkians, we didn't get into if you guys are actually from New York. I know Sophie actually went to school down in North Carolina, but why don't you guys introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll get into this thing.
I'm Emelen, and Sophie and I both went to school down in North Carolina. That's where we met, actually. And we're both from North Carolina originally, but Sophie lives here now, going to school again. She can't get away. And I'm just up here visiting.
Well,
so
awesome.
I'm Sophie, and from North Carolina, went to UNC. Now I go to Columbia, and Survivor's Best. Oh, I guess we haven't introduced that yet. But
tell us.
Go for it.
Okay, but we have a nonprofit organization called Survivor's Best Friend, and together I came up with the idea, but Emelen was the first person I told, so she's been helping me from the beginning. And so we've just been developing this and rescuing animals, and we'll tell you more about our mission, but it's kind of a surprise for you all.
Well, awesome, and thanks for coming on. I just wanted to say that Columbia is a terrible school to go to graduate school at. I mean, you must
right.
You must not take your studies
I
seriously.
hear they take anyone there.
We tried to tell her, but she just wouldn't listen.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. North Carolina is beautiful. One of my ex-girlfriends, my freshman year high school girlfriend, ended up going to Elon University. Is that in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like an hour from us.
Oh,
or
okay.
From everywhere. Yeah.
It's so beautiful down there. UNC, Duke, Elon, they're just all amazing schools, but it's just so beautiful. I mean, it's unbelievable. But yeah, so she actually ended up coming back to Rochester. So something about the Northeast
Just draws them back.
draws them back.
I guess they must love snow.
oh gosh.
But before we get into Survivor's Best Friend, why don't you guys just tell us a little bit about yourselves, a little bit more about yourselves, if you have pets, if you have dogs, what are their names, and kind of elaborate on that.
So, besides Emelen, my best friend is Biscuit. And Biscuit is a Great Dane German Shepherd mix. He weighs more than me. He's humongous. He can't fit under the table, and he's about 130 pounds.
Jeez.
And I adopted Biscuit 3 years ago. Wait, it's almost 4 years now.
There you
That's
go.
crazy. Yeah, so about 4 years ago. And right now I am studying environmental science and policy, and I'm going to go to law school after this and do environmental justice. But my passion is helping survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And so that's like most of the work I do outside of school. And yeah.
And I have a dog too. That's another reason Sophie and I became friends, because our dogs became friends. My dog is Banks, and so when I was in college, I dropped out like the second year and got a dog. I just a couple of split-second decisions, and he ended up basically saving my life, changing my life, being the best guy ever. He lives with my mom right now. Well, I live with my mom too, but he's gonna stay living with her because I'm about to move to Nicaragua in August.
Oh, wow.
Kind of continue working a little bit remotely from there. Going there to work with another nonprofit, just that does like arts workshops and stuff, because I really like teaching arts to kids. But also, again, passion to stay with survivors and
Awesome.
help them.
Yeah, so on that note, what we have in common is that Biscuit also kind of saved my life. I also had to drop out of school. Just we both kind of went through some stuff. I was sexually assaulted. I was drugged and raped in college, and that was actually the reason why I got Biscuit.
Same with me. Getting Banks was like after an assault, the first assault that I experienced, I got Banks.
And I'm so sorry to hear that. And, with that being said, there's always, some positive that comes out of it to some degree. It's tough in those type of situations to find the positive sometimes, but the fact that both of you found your dogs and it's helped you move on, and like you said, it's maybe changed your life. It might have been a catalyst to some degree. I think that's positive.
Definitely.
And you guys found each other. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
And yeah, one thing that we try to do, I guess, through Survivor's Best Friend, so I'll just give a little short intro. So we unite shelter animals with survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. Basically what that means is that we will fund adoptions of sheltered dogs and cats for survivors. And we also pay for adopted pets to become certified as emotional support animals. And that just basically requires a letter from a medical provider. So both of our pets, Banks and Biscuit, are both emotional support animals. And I guess one thing that we're trying to do through Survivor's Best Friend is shift the public narrative surrounding sexual and domestic violence away from the evils of the perpetrator to instead focus on the resilience and the autonomy that comes from the survivor really after the assault. And so we're really trying to change that narrative.
And like focus more on like the healing process and the strength that survivors, always have had, but in such a hard experience, like it forces you to show that strength and kind of harness it to keep going forward.
That's awesome. And I totally agree, because, one thing that comes with the media today is that we put all this emphasis on the shit. So,
totally.
The people that do these kind of acts and, are involved in sexual assault or rape or whatever it may be, a lot of the times they want to be in control. They want to have the power. So by you focusing on them, it's almost like you're giving them what they want. So I totally agree, and I back exactly what you guys were just saying.
Thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit about the dogs again, because Sophie, you said that he's 130 pounds. I mean, that's hard for people. That's hard for people to understand.
Yeah.
That's two dogs and one dog.
Yeah, and he's like 4 feet long and about like I don't know how tall he is. Like standing up, he's so tall. He's like 5 foot something. He's a giant, but he's a gentle giant with people for the most part. He's never hurt anyone. He is very protective of me. I think initially he really sensed my pain and my fear around, because right after the assault, I was very afraid of men. And so he kind of sensed that. But since then, like, I have a partner, I have a boyfriend. So Biscuit now, like, is okay around men, and he loves my boyfriend. But Biscuit is great with little dogs. He loves the little dogs. He always goes up to them. But with the other big dogs, he gets kind of aggressive because he is dominant. So at the dog park, I have to kind of like follow him around to make sure that he doesn't start any beefs.
Yeah. So how was that initial introduction between Biscuit and your boyfriend? How did that go over?
Yeah, that's a good story. So my boyfriend and I actually met in the hospital. And so my mom was watching Biscuit, and so once I got out of the hospital first. And then he got out of the hospital a couple weeks later and came over to my house, and Biscuit loved him because he could tell we weren't dating at the point. We were just very close. And so Biscuit knows when I love somebody, he kind of exudes that same love and kindness toward them. But at the same time, he does not listen to Winston when Winston walks him. And so like my boyfriend is like a very big guy, right? And he has a lot of trouble controlling Biscuit. But I'm really good at controlling Biscuit because Biscuit does listen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like both of our dogs, like, because they've been raised by women and like lived with just women their whole lives, they don't really respect guys.
Well,
That sounds like my house. And my dog.
I was kind of, and I hope this joke's not really out of place, but we were joking before we came on the podcast, and a lot of sexual assault and rape, it's always the guy for the most part. So when you say, raised by women, yeah, guys are the dicks 99% of the time. And even if it's a male sexual assault, 99% of the time it's a male on male sexual assault. So sorry for being a guy.
And men are assholes.
For the most part, though, I do want to say we love men and we welcome male allies into the movement, and that's something that we've really tried to emphasize. Like, I love that we're talking to you all right now because you're part of the movement. Woohoo!
Proud to be.
So yeah, that's been a big role is getting both men and women involved in this, and just as allies and along with the survivors.
Also kind of broadening, like, it's not just an experience for someone who's been assaulted. Like, I don't know, I guess the basis for sexual assault and domestic violence in our society comes a lot from culture and from kind of how we're socialized to act, and ways to gain power or feel okay about yourself. And I don't know, I guess just broadening it as something that affects everyone, even the person who is like perpetrating an assault, it still is negative for them too.
Yeah, so along with that, yeah, it affects everyone. And this isn't just like, even though it predominantly affects women, it's not just a women's problem, it's a human rights problem. And so getting everyone involved we believe is very key to change.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're definitely happy to have you on and help spread your word in any way we really can. Because I know Scott and I feel pretty strongly about what you guys are doing, and it's really important. So we want to thank you for that. But tell us a little bit, I guess, what's it like running a foundation? How did you get started? What are some of the hurdles?
So that's a great question.
We're still figuring it out.
So honestly, I was just looking back at my Instagram because I launched Survivor's Best Friend through Instagram. We weren't an official nonprofit at all then. I just kind of had this idea because I was inspired by Biscuit. I was inspired by Emelen and Banks, and it just like all clicked in my head like, oh my gosh, there wasn't another organization out there that did this. There are similar organizations that provide shelter animals to veterans who have PTSD, but none were focused on survivors. And so I saw a big opportunity in that. I was a philosophy major, I'm studying environmental science and policy now, so I don't have any like management or like business academic background, and so I really knew nothing about nonprofits. Nonetheless, I was like, you know what? I think we can do this. So we just gave it a shot.
Did a lot of internet browsing to figure out the ins and outs of, like incorporating a business and registering as a 501c3. But then kind of in the day-to-day tasks, like, we have interns that we run and board members that we collaborate with, and kind of learning how to be a friend, but also be in management at the same time has been a learning process for us. I don't know, like making to-do lists and preparing for meetings, it's kind of different than what we were used to being in college and kind of just going with the flow. It's definitely a lot more thought.
Winging it. I like to use the term you're building the plane as you're taking off. You're learning as you're going. You're making it work. A lot of the time it's not perfect, but when it comes together, it is perfect. So I totally understand that.
I think a lot of my classmates at school right now kind of think that I'm like this weird dog girl. Because
hey, it's okay to be a weird dog girl.
If you're not a weird dog
I've
girl,
totally always been like the weird dog girl. Like I know there's kind of the horse girl stereotype, but I'm like the dog girl stereotype. And basically in class is like I like to do Survivor's Best Friend in class. And so I always have like pictures of animals up and like of dogs and cats and stuff and on my laptop, so people are out seeing that I'm like looking at puppies and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you're on this podcast, you're probably that weird dog girl. Just gonna break it to you. I'm really sorry to tell you, but
we're weird dog dads,
yeah,
so. It fits together perfect.
But also something that's been really amazing since we've started this is that everyone we talk to about it seems really passionate as well, or just the amount of support that we've gotten in the community and people wanting to be involved, people wanting to ask us, wanting to learn more or wanting to offer any of their skills. Like I don't know, that's been pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, I think even people who aren't personally affected by sexual assault or domestic violence, they still really connect to our mission, because we are not only facing these public health, human rights issues, but we're also facing animal rights, animal welfare, adopting homeless pets, and people who have animals know the miracle that comes with adoption, how animals really impact and change your life, just through the love and kindness that they just emanate.
And like, who doesn't love puppies?
Yeah,
I know,
seriously.
Right? we were joking before we came on. It's like if you meet somebody, if they're old enough, they're either talking about their kid, you're talking about yourself, you're a little bit egotistical, or you're talking about your dog, or your puppy, yeah. And 90% of the time, if you're walking down the street, if somebody has a puppy, you're literally petting that puppy, hands down.
Totally. When I introduce myself to people, I like immediately show them Biscuit. It's like they automatically meet Biscuit from a picture on my phone too.
Well, you hold your phone up with the background. You're like, this is Biscuit. How are you? Yeah, we actually have a good friend. Her name's Ellie. She's been on the podcast as well. She started a small business similar to you guys, different cause. It's a little jewelry business, but on the side, she's looking to, and I can connect you guys if you'd like, but what she does is she, and I don't necessarily know what the rules are, I guess, for this, but she finds rescue dogs that are at shelters or in the pound, and she raises them at her house. So she'll have 2 or 3 dogs that are have either been abused or abandoned or just ended up at the pound for whatever reason, and she raises them for a few months at a time until somebody comes in, adopts them. And I'm not necessarily sure how that works, but I think it would be amazing for you guys to talk, because she's an amazing human being as well, and I think that a lot of the values that she demonstrates, you guys would share across the board.
Oh, we would love to.
Yeah, we would love to meet her.
Perfect. Greg, did you have anything else to?
So, what are y'all's dogs' names?
Oh, well, you know what? Not many people ask.
Wow,
we usually
thanks
just
for
tell
asking.
them.
Yeah.
Usually we like we just talked about, we usually just tell people what our dogs' names are. But Craig, go ahead.
So my dog's name is Oliver. He is about 1.5 years, and he's a golden retriever. He's 80 pounds, so he's a big, energetic puppy, and sometimes he's definitely a lot to handle. But he's all around a good boy, and I wouldn't trade him in for the world. So
80 pounds. Come on, man. What about 120, 130? Let's
130,
go.
yeah.
So what made you adopt Oliver?
So we didn't adopt. We actually shopped. But I don't know. It was just time.
Sorry,
Uh-oh.
I love Oliver though. I love Oliver.
Oh, yeah?
All dogs are great dogs.
No, we my girlfriend and I caught word that the breeder that her sister got her dog through, which is like the most amazing dog in the world, was having puppies. So I was tricked into going to just go see the puppies, which you can never really just go see
you
the
never
puppies.
just see the puppies.
Fatal mistake.
Next thing you know, the checkbook's out. But no, it's really good. And actually, the breeder's having another litter from the same mom and dad, and I've been given the same option to go see the puppies again. I'm like, I'm not falling for this. I know where this road leads.
Fool me once.
Yeah, a lot of waking up at 2 a.m. to go outside.
But puppies love siblings.
Yeah, they do.
Believe
when my
me.
boyfriend moves in, we're gonna adopt a pit bull and a little gray pit bull and name her Stella.
Oh my god! Did you guys miss Banks? So
We
much?
miss Banks so much. Biscuit and Banks are brothers.
Oh.
We lived together, and so the boys became very, very close.
Oh, yeah. Like in the kind of way that like brothers love each other, but also like that's my toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 brothers and a sister, so I get the dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have 2 dogs. My fiance and I have 2 dogs. Her dog's name is Utley. I guess they're our dogs now. He's an English lab. He's 6 years old, so we've had them a little bit longer than Greg. But she got him because actually she went through a little bit of a traumatic event, and not a little bit, a lot of it. But when she was in high school, her father passed away when she was 16. So throughout college, she was having a hard time figuring out, what she needs to do. And she was an athlete in college. And, that was the one thing kind of driving her. But what ended up happening was she had to get surgery. She tore her labrum in her hip. So the one thing that was kind of carrying her through the day, her sports and, having that camaraderie and teamwork and, friends around you and that dedication and whatever else comes with that. When she lost that, she didn't really know what she was doing with her life kind of thing. So her family ended up, her brother, her mom, and her decided that it'd be a great idea to adopt a puppy because literally Leah had to sit on she couldn't sit. So she either had to lay on the ground or be standing. So she raised this puppy herself with a torn labrum laying on the ground, which may or may not be a good or a bad thing because now he's about 80 pounds as well and thinks he's a lap dog wherever you are. But that was kind of the background with Utley, and he's a lover. We did a podcast last night as well, and he was sitting under the table with us. And we had to stop the podcast like midway through because he was snoring so loud you could hear it over the microphones.
That's so cute.
And then my dog, coincidentally, her name is Leah, and my fiance's name is Leah, so it's kind of a weird situation communicating sometimes. But got him when I was in my senior year of college. It was actually with an ex-girlfriend, so it's kind of a weird situation. But she said she found this. They weren't breeders, but their dogs had some puppies. We went, and it was actually down on one of the Indian Native American reservations over around the Buffalo area. And I'm not sure what they would have done with the dogs if nobody adopted them. So we went down and we saw the situation, and it was kind of one of those situations where you can't just leave, one of the dogs there. You didn't feel comfortable really leaving one of the dogs there. And we're petting puppies. So like Greg said, you can't just go see the puppies. But ended up bringing her home. And she's a lab pit bull mix. So her mom was a 95-pound brindle pit bull. And then her dad was like an 80-pound lab. So she's a lover. She's a little bit more high energy than Utley. Utley, he's consistent with maybe like Play-Doh, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. But funny story on the way home, and I think I've told Greg this, on the way home from getting Leah when she was 8 weeks old, I was going through the tolls on the way from Buffalo to Rochester, and I was driving a standard car. My old college car was a standard car, and I had her in my lap because, as we just discussed, I mean, once you get the puppy, you can't stop touching it. Not really safe driving, but I let off the gas, let off the clutch, and I ran into the car in front of me at like 2 miles an hour. There was no damage, but the guy like threw his hands up in the car in front of me, and I just held the puppy up. I'm like, I got a puppy. What do you want me to do? Yeah.
You said it like an Italian guy?
Yeah. Well, I brought it. Well, I picture that. That's an Italian family, an Italian uncle from New York City. That's what I was trying to do. Yeah. So that's the story of our dogs. Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
So let's continue on with you guys. And the one thing that Greg and I were actually discussing, we didn't have time to really look it up, but what's the difference between an emotional support animal, specifically a dog, and then like a service dog?
Right. So service dogs actually require training, whereas an emotional support dog does not. So for an emotional support animal, all you need is, like I said, a letter from a medical provider. So that could be a therapist, it could be a doctor, psychiatrist, whatever. They are doctors. But yeah, so, and we'll pay for that. And, that's between like $100 to $300 for the appointment, for the letter, whatever. And emotional support animals basically are there for emotional support. So for anxiety, for PTSD, and they don't actually perform any specific tasks necessarily. I mean, they may be able to, but they're not trained to perform tasks like service dogs are.
However, PTSD is also recognized under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So some people can go further and get their animal to become a service dog, or, well, generally service dogs are kind of like trained from the beginning, so you kind of adopt it already as a service dog. But if your animal is emotional support certified, then it can help with things like housing. Like if there's like a no pet rule at your house, then you could still live there if your animal is certified emotional support animal. And things like that.
In general, though, service dogs have more legal protections than emotional support animals, so they're actually allowed in more public spaces. So, I have PTSD, and I also have bipolar, which is also a disability. And I think it's really important to talk not only about sexual assault and domestic violence, but also about mental health, because the three are intricately connected, and there's also a huge stigma around all these issues. And so I've actually considered training Biscuit and getting him certified as a service animal to help me with those, just so that we have more of those benefits. But I haven't started that process yet because survivor's best friend, grad school, dog mama, all that, lots of things.
You're not busy at all. No, and I totally agree. And, what I told you about my fiance, Leah, and I hope that she doesn't mind that I'm speaking, and I know she won't, speaking about her past, but, she's dealt with a lot of the same things, depression, anxiety, PTSD, a lot of personality disorders, a lot of the time, like attachment issues, I know, come from sexual assault victims in some cases, but she's dealt with a lot of the same depression and anxiety and things like that comes along with losing somebody in your life. And I totally agree. If you guys, Sophie, in your instance, if you can continue to train and, convert, I guess, or I don't know what the appropriate word would be, but go from emotional support to a service animal, if it's going to benefit you, that's ideal, and that's exactly what I think is going to continue to help you progress through your journey, per se.
Totally. Yeah, because when you lose someone, you also kind of like metaphorically lose someone when you're sexually assaulted. So after I was raped, and I was also actually sexually abused by my father growing up. and he was violent as well. And so I was drugged and raped by a student that I didn't know in college, and that kind of brought out the whole past abuse. And so I came forward with that past abuse. And the thing that I haven't shared yet is Biscuit was my family then, you know. My mom believed me, but I was largely not supported by my family. I've received hate mail from my family about it. Haven't talked to some family members in like 4 years. It kind of split my whole family apart. And so for a long period there, I only had Biscuit. And he's literally the reason why I did not commit suicide, because I've been hospitalized for mental health issues 5 times, including for suicide. And with Biscuit, though, ever since I've had him, things have been so much better, and that's not an option, because I don't want to anymore, and I could never leave my baby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the strength that you've demonstrated, I mean, not having those support systems from your family, and, you know, that correlates to, you know, PTSD with soldiers. You know, a lot of the anxiety and depression they experience is because when they come home, they don't have the appropriate support systems in place to help them out. So I don't want to say congratulate, but I mean, the strength that you've demonstrated and where you are right now, and the strength that you're showing right now talking about this on a podcast that's going to be, you know, all over the place. I don't know how many people are listening, but, you know, it's amazing, and I respect it, and, you know, I wish all the best for both of you guys, both you gals.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, that's really, the stories are really what brought us together. Like, we heard through mutual friends talking about each other's stories, like, before we knew each other, and we knew that we had to find each other. I mean, Sophie like reached out to me because she had heard about what's happened to me, and that's like just being able to voice it and talk about it and find other people that are able to talk about it with you, I guess, has been such a healing process for us both.
And we found that, like, so Survivor's Best Friend, the idea for it is a new organization, but the idea is as old as man and womankind, you know. Yeah. Because like so many survivors have dogs or cats, because it's kind of just like an intuitive thing. You're drawn to an animal after something so terrible with a human takes place. You feel like you can't trust other humans, but animals, you know, they have that endless love and kindness in them that just draws people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I don't know if this necessarily relates, but I think it does a little bit in my weird pea brain. But Greg and I recently just read a book, and it's about Native Americans out in the West, particularly one guy named Red Cloud, who is a part of the Sioux Indians. But actually, side note, sorry, I have ADD as well. There used to be a North American mini horse that, when you were describing your dog, that made me think of that. Extinct now,
all over the place.
But no, traditionally, you know, stray dogs were not pets. It was not an animal that you brought into your home, into whatever situation that you were in, where you would feed it and treat it as an animal. So there was a stigma, and I know you mentioned that earlier. There's the stigma associated with, you know, the depression, anxiety, whatever it may be, associated with maybe a sexual assault. But in Native American culture, like you just said, it's kind of intermingled, because with a lot of these Native Americans, when they would lose a loved one or a family member or something like that, they'd often feel so much shame that they would cut their own fingers off. And in these situations, it was okay for them to adopt one of these stray dogs that are not domestic at that point, realistically. They would adopt them into their homes, and they would utilize them. And like you said, they would have the endless love, all of that stuff that really, you know, kind of helps you continue on. So I know that was kind of a stretch for a comparison, but that's kind of what made me think about, because that's what I was reading recently. But totally agree, and we're here for you guys.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
So how many survivors and animals have you connected so far?
So we have had approximately 25 applicants who have begun the process of searching for their best friend. And so that's about 2 a month since we've been operating for a year, even though it's actually less than a year because we only became an official 501c3 in September. And
Congrats,
so
that's no easy task.
Thank you. And so there have been about 6 adoptions that have been locked in, and then the rest we're helping them find their best friends in their areas. So basically, the way it works is people can apply to our adoption program through the website, and when we kind of like to verify that these applicants are survivors, we just ask them to, however they feel comfortable, in as little or as many words as they want, to describe the nature of their experience. And we believe survivors wholeheartedly. And so once we kind of get that application in, then we reach out. Our outreach coordinator will reach out with shelters and rescue groups in the area. And the survivor isn't limited to using the ones that we recommend. We just recommend based on proximity. But then they can start the process of, looking for their new best friend. And then we either pay the shelter directly or we give a reimbursement check. And one thing that we actually started to do, because this phenomena of survivors who already have either a shelter dog or a cat out there. So we actually had one applicant who already adopted one, who had already adopted a dog, and she was asking if we would give a reimbursement, and we absolutely would do that. So survivors out there who already have a shelter dog or cat, if they can provide proof that the animal is from a shelter and of how much it is, we'll definitely give a reimbursement.
That's
Wow.
awesome. That's awesome. And that totally supports your cause and the dedication that you guys have to that cause, which is just awesome.
And we're hoping, right now we're sort of trying to expand the support that we're able to give. So we're hoping in the future to be able to also cover vet bills, like, having a fund where people can apply to receive additional financial assistance if their animal needs some sort of surgery or if they're struggling to afford food or anything like that. And we just launched our Patreon website where we're helping to basically provide a safe space for people to share their experiences in any format that they want. So it's going to be content from survivors on there, but we're also using it as a platform to promote awareness about people's experiences so people can pay a monthly fee to kind of have access to all the content.
And with the monthly fee, so Patreon is basically like, I don't know if you all are familiar, but for all the listeners out there, it's an online platform for artists to share their content, but to get paid for it. And so for us, it's a way to fundraise. So basically, we accept submissions from anyone who wants to get involved, any survivor, any ally. We accept artistic submissions, photographs, written pieces. My boyfriend is a musician, and so he wants to play, and we're going to record him and get him on that. And so any kind of content, really, and we just want it to be a place where survivors can feel supported. But we also kind of try to do that on our Instagram and Facebook and Twitter pages too. And so we've grown in a year to have like over 3,000 followers on Instagram, and we found that not only have we helped people through our adoption program, but we're also kind of becoming a best friend, so to speak, to survivors just through the support and community that we've been able to provide, and through the inspiration. And like we'll spread facts and awareness about sexual assault and domestic violence, but the way that we do it, it's in kind of a healing way, not just in a depressing, like pessimistic sort of way. It's in a healing way because we really bring the animals into it.
And like also offering support tips on how people can be effective allies.
Totally.
Yeah, and you mentioned the one thing, I brought up the Instagram page. Beautiful Instagram page, by the way. The one thing I wanted to ask, though, is there's a lot of hashtags for Save6 and hashtag SAM, SAAM. What are those?
So that was our yellow theme,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was during the month of April. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so that's the SAM. And our goal was to save 6 animals during that month, and we didn't reach that goal because survivors are still kind of searching for their best friend. It can be a long process, but we raised $3,000 that month, and we received a lot of support. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And for everybody that doesn't know, Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April.
and Domestic Violence Awareness Month is October.
Okay. So that's coming up.
Yeah, coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, awesome. So we've kind of, I don't want to say gone off on a tangent, but I just want to get back into, the benefits that these emotional support animals bring, because Greg and I are dog lovers. It's a dog podcast. You guys are dog lovers. I mean, tell us a little bit about the benefit of, these animals, these emotional support animals, dogs, cats, whatever they may be. I heard a story about an emotional support squirrel on an airplane. I don't know necessarily what that's all about, but tell us a little bit about the benefit of these animals.
Well, in my personal experience, the benefits have been like anxiety, like reduced anxiety. So I was assaulted after going out one night. So for a while, I was unable to go out at night alone, especially kind of in the areas that I was that night. And I had to continue going to college in that town. So Banks was pretty vital in me being able to like walk to a friend's house at night, or even like just kind of be around if I needed to go to the grocery store or anything like that. Also, like in moments for me of like, I have like panic attacks and things like that. And so whenever I'm having a panic attack, like his presence will calm me down way quicker than anything else, like medicine or anything else like that. Also, like being able to go to sleep in your house alone, like I wasn't able to do that. It's still very difficult, but when I have my dog there, I feel safe. He's like kind of a bigger dog, so I guess I have it in my head that he could like protect me. But even if he was, I don't know, I just feel like not alone. Reason to get up in the morning. Like sometimes it's hard when you're having depression to like get up and eat or something like that. But if you have to get up and feed somebody else, then it, I don't know, gets you moving, gives you kind of a reason to start your day, a reason to get outside. Because somebody else is relying on you, and you're not just, I don't know. I think for everyone it's a little bit different, the benefits, but I think that those are some pretty common benefits. It's kind of like, I mean, y'all have animals too, and I'm sure that even if you haven't gotten them for kind of a support reason, then they still offer a lot of the same benefits, like get you outside and, get you moving.
Yeah,
on a schedule.
Absolutely. And I don't want to, I'm sorry to interrupt a little bit, but this just kind of came to my mind. I've never really looked at it this way, but like you said, we didn't get our pets for the reason that you guys did, but Leah and I actually had kind of a, I guess it was a jolting situation. We were on vacation last year in Portugal, and we were sleeping in an Airbnb in one of the safest neighborhoods in Portugal, and we fell asleep on the second floor, but it was, it's not really the second floor because Portugal, where we were, it was very, very, small and tight quarters. We fell asleep, but I opened up the window / kind of bay doors, and it had a little balcony on the side. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, Leah and I both woke up as if it were like a premonition, looked at each other, and there was a man climbing up the balcony and about to jump over the side of the balcony to come into our room. And like you just said, sleeping alone has been a big issue for myself and for Leah for several months, because you never know. There's always that one noise, even though you have all the windows locked, all the doors locked, just because of that one situation. Nothing happened, thank God. We were able to close the doors, but having the dogs there is imperative. I work out of town a lot. I stay in hotels, maybe, I don't know, a couple times every month. Not a lot, but those nights for Leah, being in a hotel, being in a Hilton or whatever the fuck it is, you feel safe in there just because you know that you could bolt lock the door. Nobody's climbing up 7 stories to that room. But for Leah, having the dogs in that room with her is imperative for her to continue to get sleep, to feel at least okay for the time being. So I fully understand and, empathize with you from that aspect.
Yeah, and one thing I was going to say is in college in North Carolina, one time I was at a coffee shop and I had Biscuit with me outside, kind of tied up at the table while I was going inside to get my coffee. And a man entered and started sexually harassing me in line, and no one spoke up for me, not even the people there. And this was a really triggering experience for me because it was just reminding me of my dad and the rape and all of that, and I got scared, and so I went right outside to Biscuit, and this man followed me. But once he saw Biscuit, he turned right around. Yeah, because Biscuit knew, and so Biscuit was like barking and jumping. I mean, Biscuit was tied to the table, so he didn't get this man, but like the man left me alone, and I just went and I hugged Biscuit, and I felt so safe from that. And it's just like, I wasn't supported by the man that was supposed to take care of me growing up, so I never really have felt safe, or like traditionally I haven't felt safe around like grown men. I do now because I've come so far in my healing, but Biscuit has kind of shown me like, I don't know, that I am safe, and that there are good guys out there, both human and dog.
Absolutely. And hell yeah, Biscuit. I mean, he sent something. He's the man. Shout out to Biscuit. But also,
shout out to Biscuit.
Shout out to Biscuit. Hashtag shout out to Biscuit. But also, fuck the people that were around you in that situation, Like, come on. Realistically, if somebody's doing that bullshit, say something, You gotta
totally say something.
Yeah, but, thank God Biscuit was there. He's the man. Yeah. So moving forward, let's just talk a little bit about, I want to know what both of your aspirations are with Survivor's Best Friend, what the goal is. We kind of went through what the goal is, what your mission is, but, where are you trying to take this thing? And I know that we've talked about it a little bit. I know that you're trying to just provide that platform, that background, that backbone for assault survivors, rape survivors. But where are you trying to take this thing? Because I'm fully on board. I'm going to support you guys forever. It's an amazing cause.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an amazing cause. But where are you guys trying to take it?
So we are trying to expand with the services that we provide. Like, we want to be a support system, have a network of therapists, like 24/7 hotlines, things. I mean, we have so many goals like that of what we want. We want to be able to provide like lifelong assistance to survivors, provide, access to kind of help, like if you've ever been to sort of like a women's center or something. We had one on campus, and they kind of provided
free therapy.
Yeah, free therapy, recommendations for like trauma, acupuncture for trauma, or support groups, things like that. So we really want to move in that direction. And personally, I'm more passionate about kind of prevention, and I think that's like very effective through education. And so I really want to move forward with holding workshops, just awareness of like gender identity and
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, toxic masculinity, and how kind of any sort of identifying things that put people into boxes can be toxic.
Totally.
And that's something, I'm going down to Nicaragua to kind of get some more experience working in that, and so I can hopefully bring it on board with us.
And one cool thing is, because no other organizations do what we do, I kind of felt the need to be a national organization. So even though we're so young, so new, we are a national nonprofit, so we will help survivors in any of the 50 states, any territory of the United States. And so we've expanded a lot within this past year. So basically, I came up with this idea. I was still a college student. So it kind of started in North Carolina, right? But then I moved in with my mom in Washington, D.C., and not all of the board members, but a large portion of our board members are in D.C. We have a university chapter at UNC. We have a university chapter at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, actually. We're starting a university chapter at Columbia and at Barnard College. Now that I live in New York City, it's really growing rapidly here. I've actually just hired a team of volunteer professional photographers who are going to help us capture moments, capture animals who need to photograph animals who need to be adopted, photograph survivors with their animals, really tell these different stories, because each story is so unique, and we just want people to know, maybe people out there who have suffered from domestic violence or sexual assault, that this does happen, and it happens to so many people, and it's okay to talk about it. It helps to talk about it. You're going to heal by letting that out and no longer holding on to this toxic event that is just like wearing you down and rotting your soul. Like, if you just let it out, it helps so much. And so we really want to share those stories, and we really want to create new stories as another thing.
New chapters.
Yeah, new chapters, new beginnings, happy endings. So
we want to be like a catalyst and a platform,
exactly.
Encourage people, but also just like be here for them to share.
So we have university chapters, but one really exciting thing is a high school student in Washington, D.C. is going to start the first high school chapter. And so that one is, the way that we're going to approach it is by largely focusing on sex ed and prevention, and talking about what does consent mean, so that this next generation hopefully won't have as many problems as we do.
And when they do, how to effectively support people.
How to talk about it, how to manage it, and also just letting them know that they have the option of adopting a dog or a cat for free.
That's awesome, and I can tell just by talking with you guys that, and I think this is the case with a lot of women, men, whoever in this situation, that it's therapy for you guys to be providing this platform. It's going to continue to help you grow. It's going to continue to help you deal with the stressors of what happened, and I fully back you guys. Anything we can do up in the Rochester area, Greg and I have relatively, I don't know, okay influence, I guess, up in the Rochester area, but we're still very connected. Still very connected with our college, Nazareth College, that's up in Rochester. So if in any way we can help, just let us know. We'll be glad to.
We would love that.
Anything we can post or do, just definitely reach out, and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you.
And as you were saying also, how it's like therapeutic for us to help people. Like, we were speaking with a woman yesterday who's, kind of in her 50s, and she's also a survivor, and she was talking about how, like, in her generation, speaking out was not as, accepted or as prevalent, I guess, as it is now. And just by her being able to support this organization, it was healing for her as well.
Oh, wow.
So yes, so we want to get all generations involved. It kind of has just naturally started as more of like a youth movement, just because we're both so young, but we want to get the older generation, the younger generation involved too. And we also just want to be inclusive and diverse as a movement, so everyone's welcome. You don't have to be a survivor. You can be an ally, an animal lover. We just want you to help spread our mission, to help raise awareness about these things, so that they are talked about, because once they're talked about, that kind of takes it out of the closet, out of the shield of darkness. So,
and it takes the power away from the perpetrator and relinquishes it back to the survivors.
Absolutely. And that was a great way to bring it back kind of to how we started the podcast a little bit. But I know that you guys, I was checking out your Instagram page, you do have an event coming up. It's called Survivors Best Friend and Spoon-Fed Kitchen and Bake Shop. So tell us a little bit about that, and then spread the word.
Yeah, so we're hosting, I'm actually organizing that event in Wilmington, North Carolina. We're hosting a carnival of healing. It's going to be a big kind of carnival-themed party. Indoor, outdoor animals are allowed, but not indoors unless they're service animals. It's going to be at Spoon-Fed Kitchen and Bake Shop, which is off of Eastwood Road in Wilmington. And they are incredible, make amazing pastries, amazing food. They're catering the whole event. And we're having a DJ, raffle. Going to be doing some carnival games, some cotton candy spinning. It's going to be really fun. And again, with like the promoting education, this is a very family-friendly event, and we're kind of trying to reach out to families, younger crowds, just to spread the awareness and make it like an accessible conversation for everybody. And again, having it be a fun thing to raise money to help survivors and shelter animals. So we're having that on Wednesday, July 31st at 6:30 to 8, or 6 to 8:30. That's what it is. And then on August 3rd, we're also having another event in Carolina Beach, which is just outside of Wilmington. It's going to be at Good Hops Brewing Company, and that's going to be pretty much this, similar, drinking beer, having some food, some live music, and we're going to have a large silent auction and raffle. We have a lot of great people, like local people that have donated some really cool artwork and things like that. They're both going to be really fun events. So if anyone's in the area or close by North Carolina, they should definitely come out and support us.
And we also have There in Spirit tickets. So for people far away, you can purchase a There in Spirit ticket to the Healing Carnival and still support from afar. Yeah. And if anyone in New York City is listening, I am hiring business development unpaid volunteer interns to help me organize fundraisers around the city. And we're also looking for photographers and just volunteers who want to capture survivor stories. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And August 3rd, that event, it's my brother's birthday. I'm going to send him down just because it's his birthday.
Yes.
But no, realistically, if you guys want us to send you down kind of like a care package of Barkology stuff to give away in the silent auction, who knows if anybody will want that. It might be a $3 silent auction, but we're more than happy to send some stuff down just to give you guys a little bit more content to use.
You would love that. Please do.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Great.
So 100% stay in contact, but tell people how to get involved. I know we've talked a lot about, social media and as well as the Carnival of Healing, but tell everybody how to get involved.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is we do rely on donations and grants, but primarily donations. And so if anyone wants to donate, you can donate through survivorsbestfriend.org/donate. And besides that, we are always looking for volunteers. And so kind of like what I was saying, people would go and find survivors in their area. So we're looking for volunteers around the country because there are survivors around the country, and there are survivors all around the country with animals as well. And we really want to be a resource to those people. And so the volunteers would help with that. We also are, are you all familiar with Wolf Tracks, Walk for a Dog app?
No, we're not, but I'm taking
Ooh,
a note
okay.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, write it down because this is a great resource. So you can actually
Sorry. WOOF?
Yes, Wolf, and then Tracks is spelled TRAX, actually.
Okay,
and
cool.
It's called Walk for a Dog, and it's an app on iPhone and I think on Android. And basically, every time you walk your dog, you turn on this app, and it raises money for an animal shelter or rescue organization of your choice. So anyone who's listening, please, please, please sign up for that. And if you choose Washington, D.C., you'll find Survivor's Best Friend under Washington, D.C., and you can walk for us. So we're always looking for volunteers to raise money for us that way. So that's awesome. That would be, yeah.
Also, as far as volunteering, we advertise for kind of specific positions, but any skill, any input or anything, like, we're kind of a big team, and anything anyone wants to bring to the table, like, we figure out a way to integrate into like what we're doing.
Yeah, that's kind of been our motto, just because Emelen and I, like we talked about earlier, we don't have a background in nonprofit management. We're just like 20-something-year-olds trying to figure out how we're gonna eat dinner. What I'm gonna eat. But like, we're just out here, and so our motto has really been to include everyone that wants to get involved, because everyone has something to offer, and we learn from new skills, new people. And so if anyone wants to help out, you can actually go on our website, and we have a Get Involved tab, and you can sign up to be a volunteer, and we'll reach out to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, guys. We're a little bit over an hour, I think. If there's anything else you want to share, please do. If not, tell everybody where they can follow you again, and we'll wrap this baby up.
Right. So I guess just as a last thing, just survivors out there, remember that you can heal, and you can especially heal with an adopted dog or cat, and we will do that. We will pay for you. So you can apply on our website and survivorsbestfriend.org, and we will reach out to you. And you can follow us at Survivor's Best Friend on Instagram, and we also have a Survivor's Best Friend Facebook.
Woo, Greg! You guys are awesome. Love
Sorry
you guys.
about
An amazing cause. Follow them, listeners that we have at Survivor's Best Friend, like they just said. But love you guys. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an experience. You're kind of bringing Greg and I a little bit out of our comfort zone, but we appreciate it so much. And
yeah, thank you guys.
Any support we can give you guys, just let us know.
Thank you.
But we always wrap up the episodes. Greg and I will say, "Wag more, bark less." With our guests, we like to ask if you guys want to start or finish it or just do it all together.
Let's just do it all as a team.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Wag more,
bark
less. You.
All right.
Thank you so much. Love you all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Great to meet you.